Everybody, so excited to be in front of the camera again. It's been a journey trying to get married, move, have a honeymoon, move, and then get settled. But I'm excited to be back in front of the camera because I am in front of the camera in my new location, which is the state of Virginia. I'm excited to be living here with my husband of like 20 days. So yeah, I told you guys that I would be back with a list of things or advice that I took that helped make my wedding process a little bit easier. Now this is not a what to do to make your wedding work for you, because what works for you works for you. What worked for me worked for me. You can tailor it to what works for you. You can tailor it to make your day as smooth as possible for you, but I can't tell you what to do on your wedding day. There was some advice that people gave me that didn't work for me, but then there was also advice people gave me that did work for me. So you just kind of take it with a grain of salt, sort through it, organize it, throw away what you don't need, keep what you need, and move on. But yeah, so without further ado, let's get started. So I'm gonna use my phone because I wrote these a long time ago, and these were after I did the first video. If you haven't watched the first video, check that out. Go ahead and click that link. Number one, keep copies of all of your documents and contracts with your vendors or anybody who's providing services for you. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have a contract with all of your vendors or anyone who is providing some kind of service with you. Now it doesn't have to be super formal. Contracts are usually either written or verbal, although verbal is kind of hard to trace and hard to like go back and review unless you're going by memory and the person remembers and you guys talked and maybe you have a third party there, and you had someone there to kind of help you remember, oh yeah, you did say that. But other than that, written contracts are usually how vendors confirm their services with you. Usually they also take deposits too, but when you get that paperwork, keep it. Any emails that you that you send between each other, keep it. Any paperwork that you pass between each other, keep it. Any text messages that you kind of send to each other, I would suggest to keep it. I kept all of my stuff and it helped. It helped me to trace back any previous conversations that we had. Anything that I sent, anything they sent me, I kept it. So that way I could review it, that way I had proof, that way they had proof, that way we knew what exactly we were doing, they knew exactly what to expect come my wedding day. Also, until everything is paid in full and all services have been rendered in their entirety, keep them. Keep them throughout your entire process. Even if you're done paying, you still have to get to your wedding day. You still have to know that what they're going to do meets the standard that they set in the contract or the standard that you set in your contract. So you want to make sure that you have that available. So also receipts, confirmations, all that good stuff, keep them. Anything you pay for, keep it. Any services that you buy or any services that you have, keep those. Number two, make sure a name is tied to the contract in case you end up working with more than one person. So it's usually good to go back to the same person, but if you have if you're doing service with someone that has like a franchise or someone that has like more than one location or has more than one consultant working with their business, chances are you may work with somebody who you have not talked to before. So what you want to do is keep a name or some kind of contact person on your contract. Know who you're talking to, ask them you know what their name is, so that you can refer back to your conversation with them, or you can refer back to their name, or tell the person that you're working with who you were working with initially. Chances are sometimes in their systems they keep records of, they keep tabs, or sometimes you get like certain things or certain like throw-ins with certain people. Let me give you an example. For instance, when I did my hotel block, one of my hotels, I talked with one particular person got all the information I needed, and then a month later when I called back to confirm everything, they had changed around their whole system, and they had also changed around the contact person that I needed to work with in order to secure my room block. And so my contract wasn't void, but a lot of the verbal information that I passed back and forth between the original person I was working with was void because there was no proof, and I was working with their new person. And so if it wasn't written down, I didn't have that information, and the person that I was working with was no longer there. So it's important to have that information, to write it down, but then also have a name that you're working with so that you're able to have those checks and balances in place. So that's kind of like 1 and 2, if that makes sense. All right, number 3, create a wedding book. So what I did was I had pens, I had written ideas, I had all kinds of things in my head, in my Pinterest board, in my phone. I had it everywhere. And so what my wedding book did was it helped me to create a cohesive, like, one-stop shop for all of my vision, for all of my ideas, for everything that I needed in order to make my wedding day happen. I experienced vendors who wanted to know information that I didn't think they needed to know. So like my floral shop needed to know how my other decor was going to look. Although that makes sense because the flowers are usually in line with your decorations. They wanted the vision too. So even though you have the vision, even though you tell them this is what I want, they may want to add something to it. Also, my wedding planner, asking questions about every little detail that I had come up with between our last meeting and the current meeting. I had to reproduce that information. And so having everything in one book, all my plans, all my contracts, all my schedules for everybody was very helpful. So yeah, all of those details that were pertinent to their services that helped to make the wedding flow was in that book. And so it helped to just pull out the book and show them the whole book, and they flipped through and saw everything that they needed without me having to flip through my phone and flip through and find and remember and do all this stuff. A wedding book really helped. All right, number 4, do not forget to count your wedding participants, your vendors, and the bride and the groom in your guest count. So I can't tell you how many people forget that. We included all of our wedding party, all of our vendors, all of any participants in our wedding, and then ourselves, the bride and groom, in the guest count, and we came up with 70 something people. And so that is a significant number when it comes to paying for food, when it comes to you know, paying for space, as far as your guest count in your wedding, when you're planning your venue. So make sure you remember to include that information, to include your wedding party in your count, in your food count, in your head count, so that you can account for their bodies as well. And your vendors as well. When your vendors are there all day, they want to eat. They want to have space to be able to do what they want to do. So if you don't count your vendors in it, and it's usually just the all-day vendors. So anybody like the day of coordinator, the photographer, the videographer, and of course your DJ or your band, they spend almost an entire day with you. So you want to make sure they get fed. You want to make sure they have the space that they need in order to do their job. So it is appropriate to make sure they eat. Other vendors like your cake decorator, your reception decorator, and anybody who does like rentals, they don't need to be counted because they won't be there all day. They're just there to do their services and then they leave. Unless you invite them to stay the entire time. That's something that you want to consider. Also, other vendors that you may not have considered are like hair artists, makeup artists, etc. Things like that. People who contribute to your beauty. If you have them all day, anybody who you have there all day, you want to make sure they get fed. You want to make sure they get accounted for when you're counting your numbers, so that you don't get shocked whenever you have like an extra 50, 70 people and you don't know where they came from. Of course, it's your wedding party. Of course, it's your participants. Of course, it's you and your spouse. So make sure you remember to include them in your count. Number 5, be open to your plans changing even at the last minute. Let me tell you, my plans I thought were set in stone the week of my wedding. The day before my wedding, there were still people who did not have the information they needed. There were still things that needed to be changed. There were still things that needed to be added. We still had to buy this. We still had to think about this. We still had to set up this. Be prepared for stuff changing. Stuff happens all the time. Life happens all the time. People can't come. People have extra people that, oh, they forgot they needed to bring them with them. You know, different circumstances and scenarios depending on your situation. Just be prepared for plans to change. Don't be so set in stone and stuck on your vision and things that you aren't open to change, because guess what? It's a wedding day, but life still happens for a lot of people. It's not their wedding day. So while you've planned entirely on this day and you've put all your eggs in this basket, everybody else has not. They still have lives, they still have families, they still have children, they still have things that happen and come up, and even you have things that happen and come up, and things that happen. Like one of our groomsmen had to drop out 2 weeks before the wedding because he had a tennis tournament that his coach would not reschedule, and he had to be there in order to remain on the team. And so we had to quickly turn around. We could have just dropped him, but we did end up, you know, of course he couldn't come, but we ended up replacing him. But things like that happen all the time. So be prepared for just the unknown to happen because you're guaranteed to see something go down. So just be prepared for change at the last minute. Number 6, set your RSVP deadline as early as possible. So we had a number of folks, and I'm speaking from experience, but this may not happen for you. You will have some people who RSVP on time, who turn in their information, who call, who send in their RSVP, who do it on the website, whatever, however way you do it. But what happened with us was we had a number of people who didn't RSVP on time. Over half of our guest list didn't RSVP on time, but half of that was due to the fact that people forgot. The other half was due to the fact that a lot of our invitations didn't get delivered either in time or at all. And so when we followed up with people, we found that out. Thankfully, we had set our RSVP deadline early enough so that we could get the people their information, so that we can correct some things that happened that were out of our control. So it's always best, and I took that advice, to set your RSVP deadline a little bit early. Now you don't probably want to do it over a month ahead of when you're getting married. So we did it like right at a month before we got married, and it worked out. So give yourself some time to kind of calculate your RSVPs, to go through that information, to review, to follow up with people. That way you won't have a last minute debacle. You won't have to be stressing the last couple weeks of you getting ready to get married. Number 7, make a month of category in your budget in addition to your miscellaneous category. All right. So you have miscellaneous costs, things that pop up, things that you didn't think about. But then there is the month of the wedding, where everything that you thought you did either goes wrong, or you just have a whole new list of I didn't think about it pop up. I'm telling you, you need to create an expense category with just funds for the month of, because that is where you'll spend probably the most money. So you're paying off all of your services that you requested, if you have not already, in addition to covering any additional costs that you counted over the course of your engagement. And then in addition to that, you're paying extra costs for like any last minute like alterations, any last minute decorations, any last minute guests that you're paying for, any last minute, you know, random things that pop up that you really didn't think about, that you really thought you had under control, but it obviously went left. So yeah, create a month of category in your budget, and I would suggest, in addition to your miscellaneous category, And there's also emergency expenses, but then that also includes accounting for things like your bridal shower, your bachelor party, your hangout times, your eating out, your family occasions, your celebrations, all that good stuff. That costs money, and sometimes that stuff gets paid for. So your bachelor party, your bridal party usually covers that, but sometimes you may need to spend money to travel. You may need to spend money to maybe get some things, to go shopping, to do whatever you do during those events. So consider that and plan accordingly. Number 8, plan for people who don't plan well. I'm just gonna pause right here and smile. Let me tell you, there is bound to be someone who does not do their part. That is a given. I'm gonna tell you, it's a wedding. It is a wedding. It is your wedding. It is a wedding for the bride and groom. That means everybody that attends is obviously not getting married on that day because it is for you and your spouse. But let me tell you, in that group of people who are not getting married on that day, which includes everybody that attends, somebody will not do their part. Somebody. It could be a guest. It could be a wedding participant. It could be your family. It could be your friend. It could be your bridesmaid, your groomsman, your flower girl, your groom, the bride, the pastor. Somebody. It is possible that somebody will not do their part. And so the way you plan for it is, if you can help it, keep who you involve to the people who are dependable and have good work ethic. Those people are who you need. Really, think about that before you get to the week of your wedding. Think about it as you're planning your bridesmaids, groomsmen, wedding participant, need help with this list. Anybody who offers is probably not gonna always be dependable. It's not gonna always be available. It's not gonna always be there for you when you need it. Trust me. And the people who offer may have good intentions, but sometimes they are not able to fulfill what you need. And so there is something that is going to go lacking. So the way that you do, the way that you prepare for that is to have you a group, a posse, somebody that can be dependable, so that when people don't do their part, you can jump on it right away. Somebody in that dependable group can jump on it right away, and you have you have all areas covered. And number 9, manage costs by managing guests. There are 2 kinds of wedding guests. I am reading because I wrote this down in the moment when I thought about it. There are 2 kinds of wedding guests. One who will adhere to the RSVP, and ones who will ignore the names on their invitation or the number of seats you have held for them. The latter of the 2 are usually those who will show up with extra people that you did not plan for, cost-wise and space-wise. If you're really tight on a budget, stick to your RSVP all the way through. Most people forsake their list at the door, but tracking your RSVPs and keeping a copy of your stats will help manage those extra bodies that ultimately cost tens and hundreds of dollars more than you budgeted. Another option is to set aside +1 money in case you want to include unexpected guests. So chances are everybody who you invite will not RSVP or will decline. And chances are, though, out of the ones who have accepted your RSVP, there will be some who still don't show up because of emergencies, because of last minute things that come up. So as a result of that, that can kind of help balance, although you don't want to depend on that, that kind of helps balance uninvited guests or guests that just show up that you didn't actually have on your list, but they came with a friend. So definitely account and manage your guest list as best as you can. So if you can have someone to manage the door for you, maybe a few people, depending on how many guests you have. I would say 1 person to 50 guests. Have someone to check in people, make sure that people are available. Make sure that people know where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there. Make sure you have someone to say, did you RSVP or not? Make sure you have someone who can manage the people who do not RSVP and say, well, if you don't mind stepping to the side, allowing the people who RSVP first, or however you want to do it. That's the way that I did it. I allowed the people who RSVP'd first and who were invited first to come in first before I sat the ones that were not. Although some people just turn them away altogether. Me, I know a lot of people, my family knows a lot of people, and so chances are the people that showed up that weren't invited, it wasn't necessarily that they weren't invited, I just didn't think I had room for them. So if we had room, we let them come in, which we did. We had more than enough room. So manage your guests appropriately, have someone checking RSVPs at the door, have a list, have who accepted, who declined, who was not invited, and then manage accordingly. I think that's all I got for right now. Feel free to drop your comments. Feel free to drop any advice that you may have received, any questions that you may have, and share this video with someone who is going through this process, who may have questions or who just may be curious about the wedding planning process. Again, this is what worked for me. This is what I experienced. Although I kind of talked to you and said what to do, what not to do, I think you should do what is best for you. And I think your wedding will be what you make it. So best wishes during the wedding planning process, and until next time, see ya.